My father crushed my ID card under his boot in front of 2,000 people. He laughed while he did it, and I just stood there, silent. Because what he didn't know was that the woman he was humiliating wasn't the daughter he remembered. She was a Navy officer, decorated, respected, feared even in rooms he could never enter. This is the story of the day my father tried to destroy me on a stage built for my brother's graduation. And the day I destroyed him back, without ever raising my voice. My name is Karen Green. I grew up in a house where my brother, Daniel, was the golden child. Every trophy he won was framed. Every report card he brought home was celebrated with dinner out. Me? I was the quiet one. The one my father called the backup plan. When I turned 18, I didn't go to the college he wanted. I didn't take the safe path. I walked into a recruiter's office and joined the Navy. My father never forgave me for that. He told everyone I had run away instead of growing up. He told his friends I couldn't handle real school. For years, I let him believe whatever made him comfortable. I didn't call to correct him. I didn't post updates online. I simply disappeared into my training, into my missions, into a world he never bothered to ask about. Meanwhile, Daniel stayed close to home. He went to the university my father wanted. He studied business. He was set to graduate with honors, and my father had been planning the celebration for months. An enormous party, rented hall, 2,000 guests, catering a stage, even a projector with a slideshow of Daniel's childhood photos. I wasn't even sure I'd be invited, but my mother begged me to come home for it, just for one weekend. She said, "Your father has changed." I should have known better. Some people don't change. They just wait for a bigger audience. I flew in quietly the night before. No uniform, no medals, just jeans and a plain jacket. I wanted to blend in, not to prove anything, but because that celebration was supposed to be about Daniel, not me. I still loved my brother. None of this was ever his fault. The night of the event, the hall was packed. Round tables stretched across the floor, string lights above, a live band playing softly while guests mingled. My father stood near the entrance, greeting business partners, laughing loudly, shaking hands like a man running for office. When he saw me, his smile faded for just a second. Then it came back, but colder. "You actually showed up," he said, loud enough for people nearby to hear. "I figured you'd be too busy playing soldier." I said nothing. I smiled and moved past him to find my mother. But I could already feel it. The night wasn't going to end quietly. Later, during registration for the family photo wall, a young event coordinator asked for ID to print name badges. I handed her mine. My father, standing behind me with a drink in his hand, snatched it out of her fingers before she could scan it. He looked at it. Then he looked at me, and something ugly crossed his face. "This," he said, holding it up. "This is what you call an achievement." Before I could respond, he dropped my ID card on the floor. And in front of the coordinator, in front of nearby guests, in front of everyone gathering for the family photo, he stepped on it. Slowly, deliberately, grinding his heel into it like he was putting out a cigarette. "She quit camp in 2 weeks," he announced, loud enough for a dozen tables to hear. People chuckled, unsure why he was even bringing this up, but laughing anyway because he was laughing. Couldn't even survive basic training. And she calls herself disciplined. It wasn't true. Not a single word of it. But truth never mattered to my father when an audience was watching. He needed a story where he was strong, and I was the failure. That story made him feel powerful. The crowd's laughter spread like static. Some guests glanced at me with pity. Others just looked away, uncomfortable, the way people do when they know something is wrong but don't want to get involved. I stood by the wall in silence. Not because I was ashamed. Not because I didn't have an answer. But because some moments don't need defending. They need patience. Then, across the room, I saw my brother Daniel freeze. He was holding his diploma, ready to walk up for photos, and his eyes had drifted toward me. Not toward my face. Toward my jacket collar, where a small pin caught the light, a silver star, tucked quietly beneath the fabric, barely visible unless you knew exactly what you were looking at. Daniel knew. His diploma slipped from his hand and hit the floor. I hadn't planned on revealing anything that night. I came home to support my brother, not to prove a point to a man who had spent his whole life needing an audience to feel important. But watching my father grind my identity into the floor in front of 2,000 people changed something in me. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to let the truth speak for itself, at the exact moment it would matter most. My commanding officer, Admiral Reyes, happened to be in the city that weekend for an unrelated ceremony, and I had mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that my family had an event nearby. He offered to stop by for 10 minutes to congratulate me on a recent commendation, unaware of what he was about to walk into. I quietly texted him one line, "Perfect timing if you're still coming." Then I waited, not with anger, with something calmer, because the best kind of justice doesn't come from shouting back. It comes from letting the truth arrive at the loudest possible moment, all on its own. 15 minutes later, the ballroom doors opened, and a man in full dress uniform walked in, flanked by 2 aides. Admiral Reyes. The room fell quiet immediately, the way rooms do when someone with real authority enters. He scanned the crowd, then walked straight toward me, and saluted. "Lieutenant Commander Green," he said clearly, "it's an honor to see you outside of duty." The secretary wanted this delivered personally. He handed me a small case. Inside was a formal citation, confirming the Silver Star I had earned for actions during a rescue operation 8 months earlier. Actions I had never spoken about publicly because in my line of work, humility isn't a virtue. It's a requirement. The room stared. My father's face went pale. The story he had told, that I had failed, that I had quit, that I was an embarrassment, collapsed in front of every single guest who had laughed along with him minutes earlier. "Lieutenant Commander," someone whispered from a nearby table. My mother covered her mouth. Daniel stood frozen, diplomas still on the floor beside him, but this time his eyes weren't filled with shock. They were filled with pride. My father tried to speak. I didn't know. "You didn't ask," I said quietly. Not shouting, not shaking, just calm enough for the truth to land harder than any anger could have. "You never asked. You just needed a story where I was smaller than you." The Admiral stayed only a few more minutes, offering polite congratulations to my parents before leaving with his aides. But the damage to my father's carefully built image was already done. Guests who had laughed at his jokes now avoided his eyes. Business partners who once respected his opinions suddenly needed to step outside for air. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I picked up my crushed ID card from the floor, brushed it off, and slipped it back into my pocket, a small piece of plastic that no longer mattered, because the truth didn't need it anymore. Daniel picked up his diploma, walked over, and hugged me tightly. "I always knew," he whispered. "I just never understood why you let him talk like that." "Because some people," I told him, "only understand respect when they finally see what they were mocking." My father never apologized that night. Some men never do, not out loud, not in front of others. But weeks later, my mother told me he had taken the framed photo of Daniel's graduation off the wall, the one taken minutes before everything unraveled, and replaced it quietly with a photo of me in uniform, receiving my commission years earlier. He never mentioned it. He never explained it. But it was there. Looking back, I don't think that night was really about revenge. It was about patience. My father spent his whole life believing volume meant strength, that laughter at someone else's expense made him look powerful. But real strength doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need to raise its voice, and it definitely doesn't need to crush someone else to feel tall. Sometimes the people who doubt us the loudest are the ones who understand us the least. And sometimes, the best response isn't an argument. It's simply living a life so undeniable that the truth speaks louder than any insult ever could. If someone in your life has ever tried to make you feel small in front of others, remember this. You don't owe them a reaction in that moment. Let your actions answer for you, when the time is right, in the way that matters most.